This week I am practicing Bach's French Suite No. 5. And today I'd like to show you the different ways I am practicing this piece to get it performance ready. When I'm practicing this allemande, the very beginning of Bach's French Suite No. 5, I like to do this exercise playing just the essential chords to understand the chordal structure. There is a 16th note that is weaving throughout the entire movement. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's there throughout the whole thing. And it's sometimes tricky not to just look and focus on making these all even and beautiful sounding. But I think before a performance, we really need to zoom out and understand what chords we're dealing with, so we know which of these 16th notes are the notes that are guiding this chordal change and which notes are just passing by. So I like to do this exercise just playing the chords while running through the actual notes in your mind. This exercise is a lot harder than you think. Your fingers just automatically want to play all of the notes as you practiced, and thinking about the chordal structure, the backbone, the bare bones of this piece takes a different skill. In the concert, I think doing this work helps a great deal because sometimes those 16th notes don't come out exactly as planned. They might rush a little bit, you might have slightly missing notes here and there, and those cause panic. But when you do this chordal work, I think you will get a lot more secure as to what the arc of the piece is, and therefore you will be able to deliver the big picture no matter what, even if the little details are missing. This exercise also makes me realize where to sing every single note and where to only bring out certain notes. So at the very end of this segment I just played for you, there is a part that goes if I simplify it with just chords, I still have to play quite a different set of chords. That's a lot of interesting chords within a very short time. And by doing that, I have identified what are the important notes in the right hand that guide this interesting phrase forward and give it identity. So it's that really is the melodic line that creates a bigger arc. And then if we add all the other notes, of course, we need to pay attention to every single note that Bach wrote, but there are always notes that are in the driver's seat, and the notes surrounding it are sort of in the passenger seat. When I'm working on the gigue of Bach's Fifth French Suite, I like to take the thematic material out of context. This theme gets repeated many different times, sometimes right hand, sometimes left hand, and depending on where he places this theme, it uses a very different combination of fingerings. So what I need to do is make sure that every time it returns, it has the same attack and it is executed similarly. So for the listener, they're able to really listen for it and the thematic material that drives the piece forward. Over time, I've decided to play it quite detached. So instead of legato, I'm going to attack, fast attack, almost to the point where my finger sort of bounces off the bottom of the keys. There's a gap in between the notes, and that gap is uniform with each in between each note, which makes it sound even. Now, next time this theme comes back, we have it in the left hand. Because the left hand is always a bit problematic for me, it just doesn't seem to function as well as my right hand most of the time. So it takes more practice. And I like to do this entire movement actually just with the left hand alone many times. It's incredibly uncomfortable in the beginning, but when the concert time comes, I'm always very grateful that I did the left hand work. The third time this thematic material shows up, it's also in the left hand. And it's important to not get tight playing this figure, because if you just kind of get tight with this long notes, I think it's very easy for this to sound quite panicky after a little while. So this long note, make sure you are releasing the tension on these G's, and then it shows up here. And then it shows up in the right hand, but using different fingers. This one's hard because you need to hang on to the pinky, and then the theme is in. It happens many different times, and this kind of movement, once it takes off, it's hard to regroup if something bad happens. So just knowing where these thematic materials show up, I have it mapped in my head. It's kind of like a painting. I have a landscape, and I know that in the first part it shows up five different times. When I'm performing it, I know exactly where I am in the journey and not get flustered when it comes back again and again. When I'm in the last stages of learning a piece by Bach, I really pay attention to the repeat signs that's in the music. This piece, for example, is really like hearing the entire piece twice, because each section has a repeat sign, and in performance I will be doing all of them. And I always ask myself, why am I playing the same passage twice in front of an audience? Second time, something has to change. Even if you don't intend on it, just walking on the same trail the second time will change things. But I think as a performer, it's important to plan to those changes that you are going to do in the concert, the simplified version and the embellished version, so they don't really get mixed up and end up confusing me in the concert. The small embellishments can be just like a little ornament. You're adding a trill here, trill there, and a little bit of playfulness or some kind of detail that would change the mood of the repeat a little bit. Let's look at the beginning of the gavotte. It goes like this. So that is without any embellishment, any trills. And then second time, when after the repeat, I'm going back to the beginning, and I like to do this. So by adding these little embellishments, I don't think it changes the big picture, but it just allows you to hear the melody in a slightly different way and hopefully illuminate the beauty that is within. Sometimes I change the landscape of the actual piece when I do the repeat of that same section. To give you an example, I'd like to refer to the saraband. In the second half of the saraband, we start very soft in the lowest energy level. So this is the first time through the second half of saraband, and Bach writes repeat back to exactly where I just started to play. So what do you do differently the second time? I really feel that we climb up to this gorgeous hill at the end, and this is quite dramatic. It reaches up and then falls down, and then it leaps up again. Leaps up again, only to fall. It's just trying to stay up there, but it resolves back to this G major. Even though it ends in G major, I'm not quite at peace with the G major that I'm left with, which brings me to the repeat back to where I started. And the second time, I have the option of playing it almost like an afterthought, much more sparse. Instead of adding embellishments, take away the embellishments and play like it's you have lost everything and suddenly you're back to where you started. And there is a little bit of what now kind of question when I play it the second time around. And there's a question as to, are you going to come out of that and build up all the way back to that dramatic scale at the end? Or is it going to be a different journey? Second time, I like to actually change the notes to this very end. Instead of that, I go the other way, changing the notes completely. Which in a way brings me a lot more peace and calmness at the end of the second time through. In conclusion, I think adding or subtracting trills or ornamentation for Baroque music, in Bach's composition for example, could change not only the little details and little sides to the melody, but it could change the big arc of the composition. So I think it's important to decide and practice what I'm going to do first time through, second time through, and all the variables, and really allow those ornamentation and little improvisatory details to settle before I do the concert. Lastly, I like to talk about adding a little breath whenever possible, especially when the tempo of the piece is quite fast. In Courante of Bach's French Suite No. 5, we have all these running notes. So it's constantly moving forward, rolling forward, and it can be a scary feeling in the concert, I remember. And so I think it's important to add those little places where I can rest a tiny bit, regroup before moving on to the next phrase. For example, I like to do that whenever I see a strong cadence. So it's dominant, and then when it reaches the tonic, even though the 16th notes just keep on moving forward, I like to create a little breath right after the resolution. So here, it's just 1/100th of a second, but I think just giving that cadence just a little bit of time to recover is going to help you feel more organized, be on top of it, and you won't be in a hurry to get to the next section. And it will define each phrase more clearly for the listener. Same goes for the end of the first section. Before you do the repeat and go back to the beginning, instead of just falling back into the beginning, so it would sound like this. You know, you're just sort of falling forward. You want to really create that little bit of breath at the end. Again, it is so slight, but whenever you see a big cadential moment, or when something resolves back to the tonic, or there is an important key change, or things that need to be felt a little bit longer, it's important to put that little breath, and I think you'll be very thankful when it's time to perform. Today I shared with you just a few techniques I like to use when I am preparing a piece like Bach's French Suite No. 5. I hope some of these techniques help you practice better and get to know the piece better and ultimately perform better. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Today I'd like to walk you through Rachmaninoff's Prelude, Opus 23, number 6 in E-flat major. I'll first play for you and then discuss some of the elements that make this prelude unique, and also talk about techniques involved in order to play this piece well. This piece reminds me of a couple of other Rachmaninoff compositions. You can try to guess what they are while you listen to my home performance. When I first heard this prelude, I felt that I had heard it before, and then I discovered I was thinking of the second theme from Rachmaninoff's second piano concerto that goes like this. They not only share the same key, but they share the same texture in both hands. Left hand in the prelude has, and then in the piano concerto, the melody itself in the prelude and now in the piano concerto, it climbs up, tapers, and then comes back down. This prelude also reminds me of the third movement of Rachmaninoff's second piano concerto. This is set in a different key, but it uses the same skills, a very legato left hand that needs to meander exquisitely without any bumps or surprises. It has to be very, very smooth and a bit in the background, but also very melodic. And the right hand that sings this gorgeous melody above. Before I start playing this prelude, I first think of a flower opening up with this melody. There's another Rachmaninoff piece that reminds me of that same image, and that is the beginning of Rachmaninoff's second symphony, third movement, Adagio, which is going to be written just a few years after this prelude. The symphony, third movement, starts like this. It's so much better played by an orchestra, but the way it goes, I feel like the whole world opens up. And this beginning, even though it's on a smaller scale and only 3 notes, but I think if played well, has that power to have that kind of image. Now let's talk about how to play the right hand in the very beginning. I think in order to create a very long-lasting horizontal singing line, we have to voice the top. It's important to just play the top a few times so you're getting the exact sound you want. And I'm putting a lot of weight onto my hand. My elbow is heavy, and these are just 3 notes, but my body is moving from left side of the piano to the right side, following the shape of the melody. And what's important is to not have an accent on top. This kind of pa, this attack in the beginning, is what would ruin a very melodic atmosphere. It's easy to want to play this chord with an accent because it's the loudest of the 3, and then it needs to last a while. But to prevent this from sounding like it's accented, you need very heavy arms that not go vertically down, but up. Up and in. It's like scooping into the piano, and with time, your arm's gonna just come up a little bit so you can relax, and the sound sort of has somewhere to travel. There's roundness to the sound after the attack. And some of it really is imagination. You have to really sing the sound you want to hear. So sing through the notes. Every note needs to connect, and especially if it's a long note and sound is decaying, but you need to put that vibrato to the note in your mind for it to exist for however long you want it to exist. Now let's talk about the left hand that always moves in constant 16th notes throughout the entire prelude. This is a huge challenge because if you're not careful, they will start sounding quite square and metronomic, and therefore the entire piece might end up sounding like a finger exercise. And we don't want that. We want very expressive, long, never-ending lines that never seems to resolve. So how do you play this left hand? There's no real shortcut to playing this well. It takes a lot of slow practice with metronome. That's going to keep you practicing at a steady tempo. What is really important is to listen to the attack of each note. Make sure there are no bumps, sudden notes or cavities that stick out from the rest, because that's going to ruin the long line. And you need to listen to what happens in between the notes. They have to be so well connected. All the notes need to be linked. So there has to be some kind of overlap between each note. So instead of there is a gap in between the notes. It sounds like ta, 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 ta. If they're connected, ta-da. If two notes are connected, it's going to be overlapped just a little bit. As I'm releasing the first note, that's exactly when my second note is going in, and then, so there's no point where there's a gap in sound or tension in the left hand. So what you're listening for so in that line that I just did, B flat and E flat stuck out a little bit, too much, so that was bumpy, so I'm gonna do it again. So that kind of slow practice is really important, and try to get it a little bit faster each time. And what is really important, that as soon as you hear that separation in sound or unevenness in sound, you have to get slower again and start over. So the whole thing is these beautiful pearls that are interwoven, and there's that thread that goes from one note to the next. I have a small trick that I use to make my left hand feel more horizontal, and that is thinking about different grouping of the notes. It's easy for this to sound in groups of 4 with the emphasis in the very first beat. So what do I mean by that? It's, you would start hearing every 4. It might sound 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So in order for me to sort of break that division, instead of thinking 1, 2, 3, 4, I like to scoot everything by 1. So I'm gonna think 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So consecutively it's 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So 1, the downbeat, is no longer this dominant beat that we are focusing on. It's simply the tail of the grouping. When I think of the grouping, it would sound like this. Right hand is playing on the downbeats pretty often. So I think making my left hand meander that way and sort of go in and out of the downbeats that the right hand is playing, that creates a better atmosphere if you're going for that long horizontal lines. I've always been a big fan of luscious and gratifying Rachmaninoff climaxes, But what is very interesting to me is how he comes out of a climactic moment before we reach the bottom. I think one of the reasons why his climactic moments and moments following that are so emotional is because Rachmaninoff doesn't give up that energy so easily. The climactic moment shows up quite early in this piece. It starts here. So we have reached the peak, and Rachmaninoff writes all these colorful chords coming out of it. After the peak, he adds this chord, and then this comes down. But what do we find? Our opening statement. After this mini climax in the first half of the prelude, Rachmaninoff spends the latter half of the prelude simply reminiscing and descending very slowly to nothing before giving us a little flurry and exiting the piece. So to me, the most important aspect of the second half of the piece is the falling chromatics. The chromatics appear in the middle voice, so it's a little bit hidden and hard to find, but I will help you listen to it. So it's on my right hand thumb. So not quite chromatic yet, but it's coming down. Sometimes it goes up a little bit, but the general direction is down. So melody returns on top, and the melody wants to go up. It's sort of like trying to cling on to that hopeful place, but there's that chromatics that keeps going down further and further, losing energy. So in my mind, there's a small discrepancy or fight between these two lines. Down that line, and then our original melody, it's a bit innocent. It keeps wanting to cling on to that hope, and then the other line answers, it keeps going down, and then so it goes. It ends up in E flat major, and Rachmaninoff still doesn't want to just call it a day. It travels up. These two weightless lines that are moving without logic or reason, and we finally end up in very peaceful E flat major. Before I go, I'd like to tell you my favorite measure in this prelude. It happens after the climax before it starts to lose energy and the chromatics start appearing in the right hand thumb. So the section goes like this. My favorite is this chord. That's probably the chord I look forward to the most when I'm playing this prelude, and it just amazes me how one note, one change, has changed the color of this entire section. And that one note is this D flat. So it's outlining the E flat major chord. And then it becomes this. That note appears and everything changes, and time stops for just a second. And it's moments like that that is the most memorable to me in a concert, because every hall, every piano rings differently on a chord like this. My piano, it's a little bit blurry on top, and some pianos have a true bell-like sound on top, and the amount of warmth you can get from the three-note chord here really is different from piano to piano. I hope you enjoyed today's deep dive and enjoyed getting to know Rachmaninoff's Prelude, Opus 23, number 6. Thank you for watching.